If you're in your 50s, like I am, and you haven't even considered a plan for retirement yet, you may want to think again. I checked out some statistics here. Our world, there's some stats on average life expectancy. And sure, while it shows that since 1900, the average life expectancy was 32 years of age. And now today in back about 2023, we see that same life expectancy go up to about 73. It's been a steady climb uphill ever since. But the World Health Organization says the average life or age that a person lives to before they actually become somewhat chronically ill, i.e. maybe emphysema, cancer, heart issues, carrying around an oxygen bottle, whatever it be, 66.1 years of age. That's right, about 13 months past the average retirement age. Most people are retiring around 65 these days, some 67, some early at 62 and start drawing early on a reduced pension. The fact remains is at 65, that doesn't give you a lot of time. On top of it, I saw some statistics in a survey done on a site called The Guardian. The Guardian compiles a lot of information about retirement ages, life expectancy. And what they're seeing in the United Kingdom is very troublesome. As a matter of fact, all over Europe. We finally hit a point where we've seemed to have plateaued. And if anything, we're starting to see a slow decline. Those numbers seem to be dropping. And a lot of it happens to be geared around, a lot of it is lifestyle. And clearly, there's a lot of processed foods today. There's a lot of sitting around, high-stress jobs, corporate world environment we've all talked about. And those are all contributing factors that I'm finding, and I've lived a lot of it. I've lived that corporate game, and a lot of us have, and we know the impacts and the toll it can take. I mean, let's just put it this way. I was out shopping here on the weekend, and I actually ran into a guy. I don't know if he recognized me or not. It's irrelevant. He was a senior leader in the organization that I just departed from. Now, I remember seeing him literally a year ago, about the time that the company let me go. Remember, I talked about how they let me go around February 28th, 2024. And so it's been about a year now, just over a year. And I remember seeing this individual, and he had a full head of hair, and it was quite dark, largely dark hair. Kind of like mine was 10, 15 years ago. It's kind of gone the other way now. But literally, a year later, I ran into this individual, and he's a higher flyer in the organization. So with that, of course, naturally, as you climb the ladder in the corporate game, we all know how that works. The big expectations, of course, the assumptions that you have to deliver. The top players, the CEO, and everybody pushing down on you means that those roles are very, very intense, shall we say. Roles that have a lot of weight to them, a lot of burden, and certainly a lot of stress. Well, I saw this individual, and he had a pretty substantial mop of gray. Now, we all turn gray with time and age, and I do know he's quite a bit younger than me, and I also know that it's been quite a trying year for the organization as a whole. But to see how he has changed in one short year, it's pretty telling, because we know stress is a major factor to a lot of people's demise. You know, bad food, we're seeing lots of that. We also saw in 2020, there was a downtick in the average life expectancy. There was a lot of people that unfortunately weren't surviving. A lot of people were getting ill, lots hospitalized, and in many cases, even worse. What I started to realize is, you know, in this last year of being retired, or you could call it semi-retired, I call it retired, because I don't have a boss or a paycheck or a schedule. I do my side hustle, it keeps me busy, and I really enjoy this. And I see people around me that I used to work with, and they're still pounding the pavement, they're still actively searching for work. And a lot of them are in their early 50s, and they don't seem to have a let up in sight. Now, no one would ever accuse me of being lazy, because I never have. I've built my own house, literally with my hands. I've done a lot of physical work in my time. I do renovations at home, projects. I've repaired cars constantly when they need maintenance or repairs. I'm certainly the last person to be accused of being lazy. But I do understand the representation of value or value add. And where do you best spend your time? Have you ever heard of somebody who says they make 150 grand a year and then they're going to go home and change a faucet, and they might save themselves one plumber's call out for 80 bucks, but they might have to take an afternoon off to change the faucet because it's been dripping and your spouse is driving them nuts? Yeah, the trade-off, right? You look at what you do best and your income versus what it costs you and the savings that you're making by taking on another little project that's going to eat into your own earnings. There's this risk reward, cost benefit reward, and you start to have to think about value add, the value proposition. Well, the value proposition to me is more than just money. There's a big, strong value proposition, and it's called life. And what I'm realizing now as I'm turning over the clock here, clearly we're into March. By June, I'm turning 55, and I'll be right smack dab in the middle of my 50s. And it's really got me confirming and reaffirming to myself that I've made the right choice to live my life in my own free way, not be cooped up behind a corporate desk and sitting in a pointless meeting and listening to the big heads ramble on about pointless ventures. Rather, I'm spending a lot more time around my family, my wife, my kids. And life's much more rewarding, fulfilling that way. Gives me the freedom as well to run errands, even if I want to go down to the bank. I'm not having to do it at rush hour or at the end of the day when everybody else is doing it and burning my time and adding even further layers of stress. Rather, in the environment I'm in today, I'm able to do it when things are quiet, when things are slow. I mosey on down there, grab a coffee, and take a short walk into the bank just as they open up at 9 o'clock, and there's nobody else and there's no lineups. So not only am I reducing stress on the job front, but I'm also reducing stress on my day-to-day life. And most people who eventually retire openly admit, okay, one thing is trying to figure out what to do next, and some people struggle with that transition and what to do with themselves. And I've always talked about you've got to have hobbies and things that you enjoy doing. But the other thing that's common amongst most retirees is stress and how it immediately just sheds off your shoulders. See, because this study that they found in Europe found that more and more people are finally leveling off. The average life expectancy over the last 2 decades, and you can't really tell over year to year because things are always fluctuating, but over a course of 2 decades now, there's been this trending offwards, and Europe sees it especially heavily. We're seeing it UK and all over within Europe, Western Europe specifically. And this is just where life is trending off. And they're saying we finally may have hit the ceiling of life expectancy. And even if, the big if, this is just a short little blip in the radar, and even if this continues trending upwards, according to the World Health Organization, people are still getting sick around 65, 66 years of age. And so you may, unfortunately, be able to have your life extended further and further through treatments and medications and drugs and surgeries. But life is not really that fulfilling when you're spending your time in and out of all these hospitals and treatment centers. Rather, life is when you're young and vivacious, and think about when you were 16, 17, 18, the best years of your life, the healthiest you've likely ever been. And you lose that year over year. So by the time you're in your mid-50s, your frequency to see doctor appointments is going up. By the time you're in your 60s, it's drastically risen, and there's a good chance that you're already dealing with something chronic. So what I'm realizing is, while many people feel that, I'm going to work till I'm 65, just remember what the World Health Organization is saying. By 66, most people are sick. So while you might live to 73, which is the average life expectancy according to this world chart, or according to some statistics in the US, the average American may live to about 75 or 76 years of age. If you retire at 65, chances are, law of averages, and you could be totally perfect, And you might live to 90 in perfect health. There are those people, but that's not the norm. The norm is get some sort of managing some sort of chronic illness at 65, 66. Then slowly transition your way to slower movement, less travel, less excitement in your retirement years. There's just less going on. You're slowing down into a point where the average person passes in their mid-70s. And so much like I was on the countdown in my organization, even before the time that they decided to move me on my way, I was always on this countdown, this proverbial countdown to 55, thinking, hey, I'll only have so many safety meetings left. I'll only have so many corporate meetings. I'll only have so many town halls. I'll only have so many of these conversations with my leader about performance. And you start counting that down. But sadly, in life, like the leaf, like right here as I'm holding in front of me, is just like life in general. It's here today, a slow wind, and it blows away. And we don't know how long we have. See, that's just it. I could live till I'm 90 and it'll all be amazing, but I may not. And so as a 50-something-year-old, I'd like to say, you have to start thinking about retirement. Do I think it's a wonderful thing? 100%. Would I do this again? You betcha. I would absolutely retire in a heartbeat at 55. And so regardless, the idea of retiring at 65, 67, just makes absolutely zero sense to me. Now, granted, the finances are consideration, a big consideration, and it really shouldn't be taken lightly. But as we look around what's going on in the world today, the stock market it's having this massive ups and downs, and unfortunately this last week we've seen these every single day. The market closes with some major drops. Now, long term, that usually comes back. And so it's like anything, house markets, real estate, stock markets, it all has ups and downs. Just like our life. Our life is full of ups and downs. There's good days, there's such not good days. Some days you feel amazing, other days you feel kind of rough and gross. But that's life. But that's what it lets you know that you're still alive. And I love that. That just makes the good days that much better and brighter. But sitting behind a laptop in your corporate environment is not the idea of life to me. Because money will always come and go, and it can be fleeting just like the leaf. But life is fleeting too. And remember, you roll in mid-60s, a year or so later, sadly, many people start getting ill. And I've also expressed that I've told a lot of you that in my previous company, two very, very close co-workers of mine, both retired at 65. One made it just past 66, and the other one didn't even quite make 66. It's absolutely tragic to see and to hear this and witness friends of yours, co-workers, counterparts, peers, that aren't even making the numbers. And granted, we can debate, how long people actually live, and sure, 70s seems to be the number, mid-70s. You can count down pretty much how many birthdays you'll have left. But do you want to be stuck in a position where you're working to 67 just to find that you may only result in 9-8 years left, which is the average? That's absolutely tragic to be living in that environment where your countdown only looks like 5, 6, 7 years. Rather, my countdown I'd much rather have looking like 20 to 25 years, because you can still enjoy the front end of that. The back end of that, unfortunately, usually is much slower, much more resigned to sitting around, and many people relegate themselves to a rocking chair. And I've never believed in that. I believe go hard or go home. There's plenty of time to rest when you're dead, is the way I've used to say that. People say, when are you going to stop? When are you going to stop, Mark? There's plenty of time to rest when you're dead. And I'll be the first to admit, I often burn the candle at both ends, keeping busy, projects, side hustle, car projects, housework. I don't really stop all that much. And when I stop, I crash hard and I get a good sleep and I get back up and start that process again. Life is worth living, and stuck behind a desk or sitting in a meeting just doesn't represent life to me. So if you're in your 50s and you haven't yet considered what retirement looks like, talk to a professional, talk to somebody that's got the financial knowledge to see what you have and what sort of options you have. Because life is short. And we only really get one kick at this. And there really are no do-overs. So if you want to escape the matrix, the hustle, the grind, you might want to start thinking about that now in your 50s. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.